All right. Well, welcome, Jane. I'm glad that you are here to join me.
Thank you.
So, if you could go back and intern at a company at the start of your career, where would it be and why?
I think that if I could intern at a company at the start of my career, it's interesting you ask that because at the start of my career, I went to a college, I had to do 4 co-op quarters. My college was quarters. I went to RIT in Rochester, shout out Tigers, and every student had to do co-ops as part of their education. It was a
Okay.
very practical application type of place. So my first co-op was at IBM, and I took a 6-month co-op that coincided with a location where my parents lived, so I didn't have to pay for housing and food because I thought, well, that way I can take this money and put it right into my education. So I was being very practical about it. I took the co-op at IBM and I quickly learned that I didn't like working for IBM. So it's amazing that I didn't say that then, but it's amazing how getting that experience and being exposed to things really can help you identify what you like and what you don't like. So, granted, there were things I really loved about that position, and
Mhm.
there were things that I really didn't love about the position. And one of them is IBM at the time, I won't mention the year and date myself, IBM at that time was very stodgy, very male centric, which many companies were and still are today.
Yeah. But especially, I would say at that time, especially. Yeah.
They were not creative, they were not imaginative, and they were very rigid. There was a dress code. And I think about some of the students I work with now, and I think about that dress code back then. And I had to wear stockings every day and heels every day and a suit every day, which I thought was, oh, I'm such a big wig. This is all great. And then I got there, and one of the things I had done in college was I had a streak in my hair. So it was, and I have very thick long hair, and it was back here and you really didn't see it because it was underneath all this other hair. So I think maybe 2 months in, it was a warm day and I decided to braid my hair. And I did a French braid. And the cool thing about this little section of hair in the French braid was that it would fan and look like stripes going kind of down my
Okay.
crown. And I wore that and I was in the office and I got called into the director's office. And I thought, oh, I'm doing a great job. It's 2 months in. They're going to tell me how great I am. And she basically told me I had to get my hair cut and I could not wear that and I could not show that. And that was unacceptable. And so, I was not a renegade or a rebel by any means. That was my little tiny rebellious streak. And it was a streak in my hair.
But it's all based on you just styled your hair a different way, and that's
Did, and it was unacceptable. So, I mean, this was a lot of years ago. So I thought about that and
a
I
lot
said,
of years.
I don't wanna do this. And I took out my braid and changed my hair, and she couldn't see it, and she goes, "Okay, as long as you don't wear it up ever, you're fine." So I couldn't wear a ponytail, I couldn't wear a braid, I couldn't style my hair any way but down, so that didn't show unless I was willing to go get it all cut out or dye it brown again.
Goodness.
And I thought, "Oh, but this is IBM, everyone loves IBM." I grew up in a town that a lot of people worked for IBM. Tens of thousands of people's parents that I went to school with worked at IBM.
It's kind of like how when I was growing up, everyone seemed to work for Sprint because they were based in
Right,
Kansas City.
right.
So you couldn't help but not know someone who worked for Sprint
Everyone knew
or had
someone who
parents who
worked at
worked for Sprint.
IBM. In fact, we had a term called a beamer. Nowadays, people say, "Oh, you drive a beamer," and it's a BMW. Back then, a beamer was someone who worked at IBM. And
Oh,
IBM didn't stand for International Business Machines. It stood for I've been moved because many of their employees were relocated across the country all the time. Anyway, we are getting off topic. What would I choose if I knew what I knew now and I had to go do an internship this month? I think that I would not focus on a big name.
okay.
I did
Why is
some big
that?
names. I did IBM as a co-op. I did Bausch& Lomb as a co-op. Bausch& Lomb is still, to this day, known very well for some of their products in the vision world. I wanted something smaller, I think. I felt better in a mid-size to small company where I was given more freedom to wear my hair the way I wanted, where I was given more opportunities. So I would want something where I didn't have a very rigid job in a silo and I could learn more about different areas of the company, that I could go out and develop and learn how this company worked, not only in my job, but how my job would interact with other jobs and what the other
Mhm.
jobs really did. So I think as a student, it's really important to look at that exchange. Is the name IBM on your resume and on your profile a really good thing to have? Absolutely. If you do that, you need to walk in with your eyes wide open and know that you are going into an environment that is rigid and maybe old school, and you're only going to learn or focus on one thing. You are going to focus as a specialist. You are going to learn as a specialist. You are not going to focus or learn as a generalist. And as you're first starting out, if you get into something that is not exactly what you're looking for, or maybe it's not something that you have an affinity for, finding that out is a great lesson to have. And as an internship, it's better to learn it as an internship than your first or second job, because now
Very
you're
true.
stuck in it for a longer period of time.
Right, and as we know, if you do a very short stint at somewhere that you may not have liked, that you didn't have that opportunity to do something like an internship, it's gonna look bad on your resume, as we know. We don't both know, for what we both do in coaching, is that you don't want that. You
No,
you don't wanna have that, showing a short term at some place because you're going to be asked about it. You can't
absolutely.
and the wrong answer, of course, is, well, they were too stodgy. They were too, you can't give that answer because that's going to reflect poorly on you. And in turn, you're going to have a lot of troubles, or I wouldn't say trouble, you're going to have challenges then
Absolutely.
to get where you're wanting to go. So,
Right. So
well, I
also,
find that very interesting.
I want a small to mid-sized company for me there that I can learn and grow and figure out what I like and what I don't like and get some great experience that I can then move forward and talk about and use as a stepping stone. Because that's basically what an internship is. It's a stepping stone.
Right. Awesome. Very good insight. I like that. So, you have made an amazing pivot from corporate leadership to coaching students. What inspired you to focus specifically on internships and early career development?
Well, so I think, first of all, I left corporate before I knew what I wanted to do because I knew what I didn't want to do. I
Okay.
was in corporate for years and years and years. And I went through a lot of different changes in the corporate world. But most importantly, as a woman in IT, I faced a lot of challenges. And I always had that feeling that I had to do more. I had to do better. I had to do better than all the men. I had to temper my enthusiasm. I had to act very calm all the time. And there was always a double standard. And I really didn't love that. I
Mhm.
also felt that if I were spending at that time 60 plus hours a week at a job, I should enjoy it. I really should like doing what I was doing. And I was good at what I was doing, but I wasn't really in love with what I was doing. And I was totally not in love with some of the politics that my company had going on. So what I did was I left the work world. I literally left my job in January, the end of January 2020. And we all know in February and March what happened but COVID. So the company I was going to go to and the job I was going to go to dissolved, like vanished in front of my face.
Wow.
They had a lot of Asian developers. So they
Mhm.
quickly said, nope, we're stopping everything. And I was stuck now unemployed for the first time in a really long time. And I didn't know what to do with myself. So I did a quick pivot and I started contracting. And I found as a contractor that I was able to cut my hours and make my hours better, but I still didn't like the politics and I still didn't like some of the things that I was seeing in the world of the businesses that was in. Amongst that time, there was also a lot of layoffs and employment was tough. So I had a couple of rough years and I decided that after all the years of experience I had, maybe coaching would be a good alternative for me because it allowed me to do what I wanted to do. It allowed me to help people. I really wanted to help people. And it allowed me to use the background and knowledge that I built for the last 30 years to help other people. So that was a win-win in my book. I originally started going in and coaching people who were overwhelmed because in my last job, 60 plus hours a week, every week, I was overwhelmed. And it's interesting, my youngest son somehow communicated to me when he was, I don't know, 13, that when I came home from work, I was too stressed out.
Mm.
I mean, he said something in anger and ran up to his room, and I knew he was in trouble at school. But after I sat back and thought about it, I said, whoa, he has some insight. And so I spent a couple of years really working on me and working on that overwhelm and some of the habits I had gotten into that helped facilitate that. And as I was coaching in overwhelm, I have another son who's older, and it's a couple of years later, and he goes to a technical college, very smart kid, but he doesn't have a lot of great social skills. And in his sophomore summer, he didn't have an internship. He didn't even have a job. So it was a bone of contention for us. And we argued and we nagged. And he transferred schools and he went off to his new school in September. And I was a nag. I'm a mom. I own it. So I kept hounding him. When are you going to get? Did you do your resume? Did you do your LinkedIn profile? I kept hounding him about doing things because I knew that he needed to do that in the fall. He couldn't wait until the spring. To me, waiting until the spring was too late.
Hmm.
So I finally got him to go into the career center. And in a unique moment, in one session, he went in, I think he spent half an hour with someone. He texted me and he said, Mom, I'm changing my profile picture on LinkedIn. You'll be happy. Because yes, I have hounded him for another 6 months past that, change you have your progressive lenses on, you were outside. It looks like you're wearing sunglasses. That's really not a great professional picture to put up there. I said, why are you doing that finally? You're finally listening to me? He goes, no, they told me at the career center to do it. Because why would he listen to his mom if he
Who has
could
been
listen?
nagging him for a while.
Yes, yes. I've been saying the right thing for months, but he wasn't going to listen to that. So he went to the career center a couple of times. I hounded him a couple of times. He finally got tired of me hounding. He went to the career center and he found that he had 3 different people at the career center. He couldn't get the same person twice. Each person told him something a little bit different. And it was a little bit much for him trying to do his studies, keep up his grades. He has a 4.0 GPA and he's a junior. And also just the stress of trying to do these applications was just too much for him. And so he said, that's okay. I'm going to be home in January. We have winter break. That's what I'm going to do. And winter break came and he did some applications, but he didn't do enough. And
Mhm.
he didn't do the networking that was necessary to get there. So having seen him struggle over and over, I started poking my nose into it. He came home for spring break and he was on the system that they have. It's called Handshake at his school. And he was on LinkedIn. And there were so many things that I was trying to get him to do that because I'm his mom, he wasn't doing. And so he left after spring break. And I said, well, if you're not going to do it, I am, because you will have an internship this summer, hell or high water. So I started networking and I networked with someone I know. I was out to dinner with a friend. They lived down a couple roads away, someone I used to work with years ago. And I said, hey, does your company do interns? And he said, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure we do. I said, where's the website? Let me see the website online. Can we look at them? So here we are at dinner. We both whip out our cell phones. We weren't on the phones before that. And we look and there's nothing. There's no
Mm.
jobs posted at all for his company. I said, well, Bill, why aren't there jobs? He goes, well, to be honest, we have them posted internal. And most of the time, people know that there's a job open and they network out. So they bring in a friend or someone they used to work with. And that's how we do our hiring. We're not big enough to have huge tracking systems, which is called applicant tracking systems, ATS. We don't have those systems. And we have a small HR department and they're generalists. They do a lot of stuff. They don't have the time to go through hundreds of resumes. If you post on LinkedIn, the resumes exponentially grow by the hour of
Mhm.
people applying. That's not to mean that everyone is a good applicant. It means that people are doing what we call spray and pray. They're spraying out their resume everywhere they can, and then they're praying that someone will actually call them, give them an interview, and give them a job.
So true.
So my son Unbeknownst to him, I networked and I got the job listing, and I had my friend, if I sent it to him, he would not have filled it out. I had our family friend send it to him and said, "Hey, I think you're good for this. Could you fill it out?" And then the next day I texted him and said, "Hey, I heard that there's this internship at Bill's company. Did he reach out to you?" He goes, "Yeah." And so for the next 3 weeks, once or twice a week, I reached out to Bill. I reached out to my son. I had him reach out to the HR. I had him reach out to the company. And all of a sudden, 2.5 weeks later, almost 3 weeks later, I get a phone call. "Mom, I have an interview on Monday." This was on a Friday. I'm like, "Great. Are you prepared?" He goes, I guess so." I said, "No, you're not.
That's an answer of no, I'm not prepared.
I've done an interview before," the obstinate attitude. So we did a little time preparing, and I sent him a spreadsheet with possible questions and the good way to respond to it and the not so good way to respond to it, and asked him to fill in his way to respond to it based on him. So, and based on this job description that he had. So he did that Sunday night on the phone. We reviewed it, made some tweaks. Monday, he had the interview. Monday was actually his birthday. Tuesday morning, he had a phone call. He had to let them know that day. So I said, "You need 24 hours. No, I got to let him know." He's like, "Calling. My phone's ringing off the hook." He never just calls in the middle of the day on a Tuesday. So that's how he got his internship. And I want you to know, from the day I spoke to our friend Bill to the day he got the offer was 20 days in March. And so experience shows that you don't have to have the internship round up by December. You don't have to have it all set and ready to go. A lot of companies are slower. The bigger the company, the slower their process. And so if you're looking at the big IBMs and Amazons and Googles and finance, the banks, really, really, really long lead time. So when you apply there, in fact, it's May right now, there are deadlines that have already passed for 2026 summer internships right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So if you are in finance and you're going into the market, investments, banking in big companies, if not past, they are rapidly approaching. Large companies start now. They spend all summer going through all the resumes in their ATS system. They start doing interviews. They do computerized interviews where all you do is you look at yourself in a computer screen. It's really hard to do because people don't like that.
I agree.
And I have some things you can do to make it a little less painful. They do probably 4 or 5 rounds for an internship. Not 1, 4 or 5.
Wow. That's a lot of rounds for an internship.
That's crazy. Yes. But so bottom line, I spent 20 days. I got my son an internship by networking with someone that works in a lab in science. He works in a chemistry lab, and my son's internship is in computer science, and he's a math major. So it doesn't matter if you know someone that works for a company that has internships, as long as you know them and they know you and you have a good relationship, they can help you.
Awesome. So, from your experience, what's one major gap that you're consistently seeing between what universities teach and what employers actually expect from interns?
Well, so it depends on the university. A lot of the teaching is the methodology and the theory of how that method came to be, sometimes the history. But a lot of times that's not a practical application.
Hmm.
And they do case studies of one application of that method, but they don't do case studies on 10 applications of that method. So people learn these things with blinders on. They learn that if I have this problem, I can use this as a solution. They don't learn that if I have all these other problems, that I can find this as a solution. And the businesses have all these other problems. They don't just have this one problem. So companies and work is more of the practical applications. And a lot of times, even when they apply it, a company may not apply it by the book. They may apply a hybrid approach,
Okay.
may not have as many employees as necessary to follow the processes or the practical applications the way it's theorized. They have to take some shortcuts, if you will. And so when you learn something at a business or you go into a business, it's almost like you're relearning it because they have their own process.
Hmm.
And it's most definitely not the process that you learned in the university. And so
Okay.
that's biggest disconnect that I have seen. However, the universities are giving great projects that you can use on your resume and in your profile to highlight some of your knowledge and your learning and your ability to learn. So even if they're not providing the specific methodology and process that a company might use, they are providing examples and things that students can use to showcase and highlight their abilities.
Interesting. It's very interesting because I think we use when we've been in the workforce, there are a lot of companies, there are certain programs that everyone kind of expects you to have possibly expertise in. But what's so funny is a lot of them, it depends on how the company uses that application. So you might have experience in the application, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have that experience in how
Absolutely.
they use the application.
Absolutely.
And it's always been funny to me when I've been in interviews and they're like, "Oh, well, how do you know how to use Access, Microsoft Access, for instance?" Well, yeah, but how are you using it?
Right. Right.
Because I've had this experience in using it like ABC. We're using it like XYZ. Okay, well, I don't have experience like that.
Right. And so what typically happens is software packages and systems in general have tried to not focus on a niche, but they've tried to have a lot of general sections and areas and modules, they call them modules,
Mhm.
so that you can use that software for multiple different functions. Challenge is that oftentimes they go wide and they don't go deep. And so you can know something in the deep chasm of one area but not know the width of it. And someone wants something that's off to the side or to the other side and don't even use that module. And software companies make all these modules and make all these suites of software that could all be used by the same customer so that they talk to each other as softwares. But that doesn't mean that you are an expert by any means in that. It
Mhm.
also doesn't mean that you can't learn it very quickly because you're ready, sort of know how the software works and how some of the data sets are and things like that. So it's sometimes easier having known something, even if you don't know that specific functionality.
Exactly. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier with how you got into helping your son. So networking can obviously be intimidating for students. I don't think we find that intimidating, but these younger generations, I feel they're having some struggles. What's your favorite strategy to help them build genuine professional connections without feeling overwhelmed?
So I'm going to make a joke. This is my cell phone. The generation today is really comfortable with their cell phone because they don't do networking. What if I told them that they could use their cell phone to help them network and that on their cell phone is a network they don't even know about or they don't realize they have? And so what I do, it's my favorite way, is I teach them about their hot connection list or their warm connection lists. You've heard of cold calling. And a lot of times people apply for jobs that they see that they'd be perfect for by sending in a cold application. Cold means they don't know anyone there and no one is walking it into HR and saying, "Hey, guess what? My friend Jon Barbe, he is phenomenal at this. He'd be the best guy for the job." Without having that advocate, you are now one of the applications on a huge stack of applications.
Hmm.
And so they send it through the applicant tracking system. System goes and pops out a few that they'll look at and a whole bunch that they won't. The hot list or their warm connection list are people they know. And there's a couple of different ways to look for jobs, but the best thing that networking that I can recommend is network with someone you know. These students have all grown up in a society where their family knows someone or they know someone, they've met someone, they know professors, they know people who work at the institution that they're going to. They know people from their high school. Their professors are from their high school, their teachers from the high school. Some of them may have worked in industry before they came, or some of them may have good friends and colleagues that aren't teaching anymore, but are now working in different industries. So the best way to reach out is to make a list. And just like your Santa, You're making your list and you're checking it twice. So you're making your list of who do I know? Who do I know that might work? Do I have any aunts or uncles? Do I have any cousins? Do I have any teachers? Do I have any advisors that I used in high school? Do I have any here in college? Did I participate on a sport with someone who is now at a different college, but in the same area? Did I participate in a sport with someone here in my college when I was a freshman and they were a senior and now they're out working in the world? And guess what? They were the same degree as me. And
Hmm.
they love this school because they went here too. And they graduated from here too. So people don't realize they have this wealth of people. And as a student, a lot of times these people want to help them.
Hmm.
As you get older, you want to help the next generation. You want to help people that you know. And help could just be getting the resume in front of the hiring manager or finding a hiring manager or submitting something and then following up with HR. In my case, with my buddy Bill, I probably worked with Bill in the 90s.
So it's been a while.
It's been a while. I still keep in touch with Bill. I mean, we've had years where we haven't talked at all, and then now we probably talk every once a month, twice a month, and he lives a mile and a half down the road. So knowing someone and being in touch, my kids grew up and they practically call him Uncle Bill. So there's got to be someone that you grew up with that you know in one way as a kid. My uncle. Yeah, I don't know where he works. He's just my uncle. He comes over for Thanksgiving. Well, now's the time that you're approaching adulthood that you can go and say, "Hey, mom, can you give me your brother's number? I want to talk to him about what job he does and how he likes it and have an adult conversation with him so that he stops looking at me like little Billy who's wearing diapers and starts recognizing me as a mechanical engineering student that is looking for a job for the summer, for an internship, or looking for a 6-month internship, or maybe even looking for a first job out of college. These people are gold. You need
Hmm.
to network with them. I had a student recently, and he took to heart that networking list, and he networked with his uncle. His uncle worked at FedEx. You've heard of FedEx, right? Well, FedEx is not just delivery trucks. There's a lot to their warehouses. There's a lot to their supply chain. There's a lot to their systems. There's so many. They do marketing. They do sales. They do engineering. They do all of that stuff. So this student's uncle worked at FedEx, and I think he was a lawyer. He worked in the business. He'd been there for 20 years, but he wasn't in this student's function. The student was a mechanical engineering student, but he found a job that was appropriate for FedEx. He did the application on the internship. He talked to his uncle about it. His uncle reached out, and all of a sudden he was getting interviews elsewhere because we were working on that. All of a sudden he got the interview at FedEx, and they told him it would be a couple weeks, probably 2 weeks before they figured things out. And he said, okay. He had another interview coming up on Monday. And about 2 hours later, he got a phone call, an email, and a text saying to check his email because he just got an offer from FedEx.
Wow.
So and funny thing is, it took him 20 days from the time I started working with him to the time he landed a job. Took him 20 days. And that was in April.
Interesting. The
So
20 days seems to be a consistent
yeah, well, I
time
think
period.
it's the push. Right now, a lot of things are happening
Right.
because the larger companies took all this time. The smaller companies are coming in and saying, oh gosh, summer's coming. We need to get some summer interns in here. Companies love to hire interns. They can pay them less than a regular employee.
Mhm.
They typically don't take the insurance and some of the other things. They don't have paid vacations, and it's an hourly job. So it's a win-win for a company to bring in someone who could be their next hire in another year, to have them do some of the work that has a higher volume and maybe a lower skill level. It gives them an opportunity to train people. It gives them an opportunity to try out someone before they hire them, actually, if they want to hire someone in the next year or so in that field. So it's a win-win for a company, and it's a win-win for the student.
So to follow up on the networking, so what you were talking about, Do these students really use their phone? Do they actually really get on the phone and talk? Because I know some of these younger generations are all about texting.
Well, funny you ask because they do both. Some get on the phone and talk, some get on and do a FaceTime or a Zoom, and some text. So, really interesting. The uncle was originally a holiday, what are you doing with your life now that you're in college question
Hmm.
that turned into let's move that forward. The list that I have them create is at least 100 names. That's a lot of people. They don't have to reach out to all 100 in the first week, but they do have an assignment to start reaching out to these people and establishing those connections because that connection may not help you for this job or even
Hmm.
the next. They might help you in 5 years for another job, but you'll never know if you don't stay connected with them.
Right.
So I have some tips and tricks for students to reach out and how to reach out. And typically it's just catching up and reestablishing the relationship in a way that is more appropriate for their age right now.
Okay. It's interesting because I definitely networked for jobs that I've gotten, especially here living in Colorado. I did it as well before I moved out here. I think what's interesting is for me, when I was younger, especially when I was in college, one of the things that did happen that in turn didn't end up going well was trying to get into a fraternity. And it was, well, my uncle was a part of that fraternity. And so he knew this person who knew this person who knew this person. And so, because of the two different fraternities that my uncle had been in, as well as my dad had been in, I was obviously legacy. And in the end, it didn't end up panning out, not because of what they had done and the efforts that they had gone through, which I was very thankful for what they did. But it was mainly I didn't like what I was seeing. And I think, excuse me, the networking is huge. And I like you brought up some names and people that I wouldn't even thought of to, expanding that network. We network all the time. And it's interesting because those people that we're networking with, like an aunt or an uncle, sometimes we may not have that conversation outside of a holiday or
No.
summer vacation or whatever it might be. And it's a great way, honestly, also just to get to know that relative. If
Yes.
you're going through a relative or a family friend or whoever that might be. So I think it's very applicable. It's very important for them to know this because in the end, well, I guess in the future, they're going to have to do some more to
Uh,
probably get where they really want to go. And the networking, they'll have that practice.
Practice is golden.
And as we know, practice, I wouldn't say practice makes perfect, but practice gets you that consistency, that taking the action to get where you possibly want to go.
It takes away the fear and it gets you in the mode that it's not something to be scared of or to
Hmm.
postpone or procrastinate. It's not a big deal. I've had people network with their neighbors that they grew up next to. And you knew Mr. Jones because you used to throw your ball in his yard all the time and sneak over to get the ball, but he's not the same as when you were 10 years old or 5 years old.
Exactly.
And so you have to change that relationship, and having people
Mhm.
change their relationships is a challenge, but it's something that's really necessary because as they grow out into the world, they have to change relationships. And if they go in the world and only look forward to new people they're meeting, they're missing part of their lifetime, part of the people they've known for a lifetime they're comfortable with. If you can go out and reach out to your neighbor, to your old advisor on the swim team, to the coach that you had in the basketball team, to your friends' parents. If you had a BFF and you knew their parents as Mr. and Mrs. Smith and you were in their house 30 times a month, you were there every day, you ate half your meals there, they were practically second parents to you. But you've moved away to college and you've been there 2 or 3 years, and you maybe see them when you're home for the holidays and you pick up your BFF on the way to a coffee house or something. Well, no, what you need to do is say, "Hey, I'd love to sit here and have coffee with you guys. I haven't seen you in forever. I'd love to update you on what I'm doing. I wanna learn more about you guys because when I was a kid, it was all about me. But now I realize that I don't even know what you guys do. Where do you work?" That's all you have to do. People love talking about themselves and they love helping students and someone they saw grow up.
Completely. I 100% agree. So, you teach students how to optimize their resumes and LinkedIn profiles. What is one common mistake that you see students make, and how can they fix it?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
And I would say, don't give away too much. But I want people to hire you. So,
So I think the biggest challenge or optimization that students should do is on their LinkedIn profile. There is a field on the LinkedIn profile called the About Me, the About section. And if you've ever looked at a website, it's actually the About Me page is all about the company or about the person whose page it is. And it gives some history as well as where this person is going, what this person's doing, what are the values of this person. It is an amazing 2,600 character section of emptiness that you can show who you are. So use it that way. Tell people what you want. Tell people what you're looking for, what you're aspiring to do, and tell people what value you can add to them. When I say tell people who you are and what you're aspiring to do, please don't make this one mistake. Do not say, "Hey, I want to work at this big financial firm for the next 3 years so I can learn everything because in 3 years I'm going to start my own business after learning everything I can from this firm." Because the firm's not going to hire you.
no, they are not.
And that's a true story. Someone did not realize he wrote that in his about. My
Oops.
17-year-old son was looking at it and called him out. And the guy was like, "Oh my gosh, how did I don't realize I did that. What? Are you kidding me? What was I thinking?" So put something in this about section, take and put a hat on of someone else. You've all seen those videos where someone is, "Hey, I'm so and so," and then they change their getup and their hair and their hat, and now they're someone else and they're in the video facing themselves like an alter ego.
Mhm.
Change your hat, put a hat on, look at it, and pretend you are the HR. Pretend you are the hiring manager and you have never met this person. And you're reading, and it's the only thing you know about them. Use that to craft your about section. But don't leave it blank and don't put "I like puppy dogs and walks on the beach" because this is not a dating site.
No, it is not.
And you're graduating with your master's, finding out what you did in high school isn't relevant
Nope.
because that's happened too. You
Wow.
need to put stuff about you that's going to add value for the role they're looking at for you. It's a 3 to 8 second look at your profile before they go to the next one. What are you going to do to stop the scroll? Use the about section.
Very, very good advice. So, internships are more competitive than ever, as you know. What advice would you give to a student who feels discouraged after facing multiple rejections?
Honestly, rejections are amazing. I love getting rejections, not because they don't want you, but because you're actually getting seen and you're not getting ghosted, which I mean, that sounds kind of bad, but
No, but you're right, because I've heard so many people that get ghosted on applying for jobs. And wouldn't you want that? You're right. I would rather have that rejection letter
right.
because then you know you're right. You've been seen. They actually at least know your name.
So you've been seen and you know that you're not resonating. Rejection is like a lesson learned if you'll learn it. We don't learn when everything's going great. We learn when there's a problem and we have to fix something. We learn when there is a challenge. Take the challenge and own it. If you're getting rejected or ghosted, means it could mean nothing. It could mean, guess what? There is a volume game out there. You have to apply to a lot because there's so much of a volume. There's so many hundreds and thousands of people applying to every job.
Mhm.
So rejection is a part of life, but it's also a way of learning. What did the employers see? What didn't they like? If they didn't like something, you can ask for feedback.
Probably not going to get it,
You're
but
not going to get it. I highly doubt you'll get it, but you need to be confident in saying, "Okay, I didn't get it. That's okay. I maybe didn't have the top thing they were looking for because guess what? People don't need to have 100% of everything they put on the job description. There is room to learn. There's room to grow, but you need to have certain things or some things. Sometimes they'll have 10 things they are looking for, but
Mhm.
2 are key things that are really important. If you don't have those 2 and you have the other 8, they don't care. So you could go in saying, "Well, I got 80% of it," but the top 2 are the things you're gonna spend 90% of your time when you're there, and they really want you to have. Job descriptions have required and nice to haves, and people need to understand that. That student who put in his about section that he wanted to make his own firm, and that was his long-term goal, actually a 3-year goal, which is kinda crazy.
Yeah,
He
that's quite fast, by the way.
It is. Well, but he was an optimistic student.
Good for him.
He did that without thinking about the prospective employer. And once he realized it, and he did his palm slap on his forehead, he's like, "Oh, well, who's gonna hire someone who's gonna leave them right away because they're just using them? I can't believe I did that." So you need to look at everything you send in critically and try to assess, okay, great, I got rejected. Why did I get rejected? Was it a numbers thing? Was it because of my profile? Or was it because of my resume? Or was it just not the right fit? There was someone who was perfect for this, and it wasn't me. You're never going to know. What you do know is what you can do. You can look and see what you didn't have. You can work on your skills. You can get certifications. You can work on your profile. You can work on your about section. You can work on your resume. You can work on networking. And the other thing is you really need to niche in what job you're looking for
Mhm.
and make your profile and your resume stand out for that. If you are too general across everything and you list all of the coursework you've had and you could do this or you could do that and you could do this industry and you could do that industry, you are not telling them that you want to be in their industry. You are not saying, I want to be a mechanical designer. And
Yeah.
one last hint, I spoke to someone yesterday. They use the word proficient. They're proficient at CAD. And I said to them, I said, what does proficient mean? Well, proficient meant knowing how to use it, but not being an expert. Like, okay. So maybe substandard, not really great at it? And they yeah. And I said, "Okay, so you're telling them you're not great at a skill. Why would you highlight that to them? They're your prospective employer." And that was another head slap moment that people just don't think in the employer's shoes. They don't put
Mhm.
themselves in those shoes. If I could give any advice, whether it be on a rejection or on your profile or on your resume or anything that you are trying to do, put yourself in their shoes. Pretend you are them. Act like you are them and look at your profile.
Good advice. So, biggest internship myth that you wish would disappear?
That you need experience to get an internship or a job.
Good advice. One must-have skill that every intern should develop today. I think I know this answer, but
One must have skill that anyone looking for an internship should develop today. I think it's communication. You're going to be working with people, you're going to be meeting new people, you're going to be networking. You need to be able to communicate. You need to get your ideas across.
great answer. So, coffee chat or career fair, which is better for landing an internship?
Can I say neither?
Yes, you can. What would you say instead?
Oh, so you could do a career fair. I think job fairs and career fairs are like a dying breed. They often are there to collect information for a database that they rarely mine and use. And trying to establish a relationship in a career fair when there's so many people jostling and handing resumes and talking and trying to make an impression that it's a hard sell. And it's just one step up from a cold application.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you.
The coffee networking can be good. My problem with them is it tends on becoming very much like a high school clique.
Mm,
There's a couple little groups, and everyone just stays in that group and talks within that group. And they establish themselves as a group in this coffee meetup, and they don't open up and they don't move around and they don't meet other people. So it's really not great networking or speed networking. It is a small group who will network as a subgroup within. And often, like in high school, they don't allow outsiders. So once they
mhm.
establish themselves, if you go over, oh, what are you guys talking about? They look at you like you have 10 heads. And so that can be very daunting and scary, especially to someone who's not used to doing it. So I would think meeting people, networking with people in using their warm list, their hot communication, their hot contacts, those are people they know. And it's a lot easier to network with them to start with. Moving forward, if they have an identified company or identified role, and that company has a lot of people in that role, then you can start networking with people in that company to learn about that company and that role. And that is a very specific, non general focused way of doing it versus just going to wherever a whole bunch of people are and hoping that you find someone that's going to have the job for you. Does it happen? Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. But
Yep.
it's a lot harder than some of those other methods.
Alrighty. So that wasn't hard, was it?
Yes. You know, I didn't like the, I don't know what question's coming at me type of a thing, but
Yeah, too bad. The good thing is it's they're over. Well, except I have one more. This is I ask everyone this.
no.
So, what key piece of advice, and you kind of touced on this a little bit, but see if you can maybe give something different. What key piece of advice or actionable tip would you leave our listeners, but especially interns today? Or I wouldn't say interns, students who are looking for an internship. Let me clarify on that.
So what one piece of advice would I leave out there for them? I think I would say done is better than perfect. Don't make excuses. Everyone makes excuses why they're not applying it. Oh, my resume is not perfect. I need to fix my resume. I need to fix my profile. I need to do this. I need to do that. You have this huge list of things you need to do that you're procrastinating doing because there's something holding you back. There's something else. There's always something else that's a priority over this. And you always push it back and you often will push off things or procrastinate on things that you're not comfortable with or you're not confident with. And so what I would say is getting it done, just do it and get it done because done is better than perfect. Jon, you and I both know this from a coaching standpoint. You always have to just get it done because if you don't, you'll never get it done. So
Right.
looking for a co-op, an internship, a first job, there's always going to be something else getting in your way. If this is something you need to have, is this something you want to have? Don't get in your own way. Just do it. Be
And
like,
I think one thing that you and I both have learned as coaches is taking that messy action. Just do it.
just do it.
You're going to learn if it didn't work out, like you said, with the rejections,
Right.
or you're going to learn, or at least I sure hope you learn to do it better, to make it more impactful to then proceed forward.
Practice gives you experience.
100%.
If you do it and it wasn't great, well, then you're going to look at it and say, oh, I could do this better next time. Or I really want to tweak this on my resume. Or I really want to tweak this on my profile. The
I
first step
mean,
is having them. The next step is tweaking them. But once you have them, use them, even if you know they're not perfect, because you're the one that sees all the imperfections more than anyone else because you're always your own worst judge. So just do it.
I think you and I would both agree we have changed our LinkedIn way more than we probably should have ever had to. But we're doing it for the right reasons. We're doing it because we know we took the messy action. We took what we were advised to do. And we're now seeing things that are making more sense for us that we feel are going to be more beneficial to our audience, to those who we want to work with.
I just celebrated 20 years on LinkedIn. I
Oh,
have been on that platform since it was pretty much since inception. I have been on LinkedIn for 20 years. For the first, I'd say 16 years, the only time I changed my profile is when I got a new job. I put on my new
wasn't that
job.
always when we just changed it
I
before?
spiced up my old job. Occasionally, I'd go in and maybe I'd put in a more current picture. I might change one or two things, but I went years without changing it. I probably changed my profile. I actually have an action item to review and modify, if necessary, my profile every quarter. So 4 times a year, I go in and I look at my profile and is this right? Is this accurate? Like right now, I'm teaching students how to find an internship. Is it an appropriate profile for someone who's coaching students? If I put my student shoes on and my student hat on, here I have a hat. I'm a student now, right? And you laugh at this, but I do this. I literally
No,
do
it's
this
good advice,
because
actually.
now, wait, our friend Carter told me to do it this way once, right? So now I'm a student. I'm like, okay, what am I seeing? What is a student seeing when they look at my profile?
Exactly.
When the student comes on, I'm me. I'm looking at it from a corporate standpoint.
Well, and you're seeing it coming from the coaching side. You're not
Yeah,
seeing it from their side. So we can post as much amazing content as we humanly want possible. But if they're not connecting with even just our banner or even our about section, it doesn't matter what we've posted.
John,
I
have
mean,
you
when it
ever
comes
set
down to it,
a timer for 8 seconds? Put on a hat, said you're the consumer of this profile.
I
Put up your
haven't.
profile, turned on the timer, and looked at it for 8 seconds, and decided, is this something that I want to stick to, or is this something that I'm going to pass?
Actually, that's not true. I have done it on my Facebook. Like I have done it there, especially with some other pages that I've managed before
Yep.
in the past.
Yeah,
Because I want to see it from that different perspective. Because I'm seeing it from the back end of it and just
right.
see it from that front end of it. Is the consumer seeing? What are they
What is
seeing?
someone seeing? What are they seeing? What are they liking? What are they not liking? Just like you look back at what you wore 10 years ago and say, oh my God, what was I thinking? That's so that style.
I'm an
Your,
old Gen Xer. I wear some of
your
the same.
So we look at things from the past and we think, "Oh, what was I thinking?" Or, "Oh my god, look at that." And sometimes we think, "Oh wow, that's cool. That's rad. That's whatever they call it nowadays." But being able to look at it from different eyes is really valuable.
I agree. Yeah. So, Jane, thank you so much for coming on.
Any
It's been a long time waiting, but this was definitely worth the wait. And for the listeners out there, I have all of her resources where you can find her on LinkedIn and Facebook. Unlike Jane, I'm also on Instagram and sometimes TikTok, kind of steering away from that at the moment. But I just want to thank you so much. I learned so much. I really did learn. I know it's in my script to say that I learned so much, but I really did actually learn.
what
Sorry,
did you learn?
listeners. There's sometimes it's said, but I really do mean it.
So John, tell me, what is one thing you learned today that you're gonna take and use in your own life, even though you're not looking for an internship?
I think
About
what you
inspired
shared,
something.
look, the tables have turned. I mean, being asked questions on my own podcast. I would say the networking, like really reaching out to not just who you think, we have much more of a bigger network than we really think. And really being able to sit and learn, possibly learn from those that we may not have ever thought. I think as I've gotten older, some of my conversations with my aunts and uncles are obviously completely different now because we're all adults compared to when we were kids. I might only see them during the holidays. So now I feel very fortunate because one of my aunt and uncle who live out here in Colorado, we still don't see each other that often, but we see each other enough that we can have those good conversations and networking. And even a great networking story for me was when I first moved out here, my aunt helped me promote my photography. She was in a social organization and I went to an event and I got to promote my photography. And that was because of the networking that we had a chat and we did it. And I mean, that was like 10 years ago now. So, but still, it was very valuable. And I got a client and it helped me, back then. So I know networking is huge. And I think I learned to broaden my horizons, to really look,
That's
to
I love
not just narrowing down my initial close group of friends, but broadening who 1,000+ people that I'm friends with on Facebook or what, those connections. There's a reason I'm connected with them. And they might know someone that knows someone who needs, like, even for me, my coaching services. So you never know if you don't ask.
that is correct.
So with that, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. I'm so glad that you're now doing this,
Me
and
too.
I'm glad that you were convinced to start back up and do podcasting.
Yeah, we probably should give a shout. I probably need to give a shout out to your son
Yeah,
because he
oh,
is the reason that last September and that my conversation with him that I did when I got to meet him and you in person, that it really kind of fell into my lap to, I'm like, oh, I should do this again because I loved doing it before. And I know there are a lot of people who may not want to do a podcast because they're like, oh my gosh, it's so much work. It's so much work. But I think, kind of like with us with coaching, when you love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work.
It's not.
And with me, with my coaching and with me, especially with this podcast, I feel I'm being blessed and humbled every single time I get to reach out and chat with people, fellow coaches, entrepreneurs, whoever it might be. And I learn something every single time. Even if it's not like as you know, I've interviewed many fellow coaches, friends of ours. And even though we're not at all in the same niche, I'm still taking things away from what they learned. And I think that's what's important, is that no matter who I'm bringing on or no matter what I am sharing to my audience, that it's all about learning and growing. And I think that as long as I am enjoying doing it, I'm going to keep doing it. And at this point, I might stress a little when I'm trying to find a topic to cover, but in the end, I love it. It's fun.
Well,
So
Jon, since you started doing this, every time you talk about your podcast, I see and I hear the excitement and the enthusiasm that you bring. So I want to stress to someone who's looking for an internship, looking for a job, looking for coaching, looking for help, trying to figure out who they are, look for something that's exciting and brings you enjoyment and enthusiasm. If something is that exciting and enthusiastic to you, that's something you should be doing.
100%.
People don't know that about you, or people may not see that, but I see that. And I wanted to let all of your listeners know that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Listeners, if today's conversation with Jane, gave you a new perspective or a few strategies that you're excited to try, well, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with this episode, with a student, with a recent grad, or even a mentor who needs to hear it. Because if you're serious about leveling up your career journey, make sure that you've subscribed to Empowered and Out. I know I bug Jane all the time to listen to my episodes, but
I do.
there's always expert advice coming. There's always advice that I give. It feels weird to call myself an expert, but I guess I am in certain ways. So, leave us a review, send me a message with your biggest takeaway. I mean, Jane put me on the spot. She asked me what my biggest takeaway was. And, let's build careers and lives with purpose and with power. Until next time, stay proud. Until next time, stay proud, stay empowered, and we'll see you back here soon.
Awesome.